You can hear me clearly, everybody? Okay. Come on in. Come on in. All right, who's kind of tired? Don't be afraid. Okay, thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Not going to help with that, but I mean, like, I just want to know, right, where everybody's at today. Okay. Come on in. Come on in. All right, everybody can hear me. Everybody can see me. I like to always mention that I was sponsored for this event by this gentleman, wonderful gentleman back here, Andrew. So if it's amazing, give him high fives. If it's awful, also it's his fault, right? But we want to thank Andrew. Andrew, thanks for introducing me to this group. I'm pumped to be here with you guys. Did a frantic flight in, which was a little close for me, but I made it. So we got it. All right, we're going to go. I got my sound guy back there. We're good? Okay, cool. All right, everybody, this is my company, All Needs Planning, supporting your family with a special needs master plan. So this is me. So you see this lovely little one in this peach little number right here? Her name is Ruth, and she happens to have a rare disease as well, just not yours. And so when I was pregnant with Ruth, I was already in the financial planning world. We are the lucky rare disease group where I had a diagnosis while I was pregnant with her, which is a gift, as we all know, in the rare disease world. I came out of that maternity leave knowing my plan was hosed and knowing your families and my family was the only families I wanted to help in the financial planning realm, okay? I also have this lovely little Control X of me in my arms. She's a carbon copy of this face because she can open my phone with her face, which is awesome. Charlie, and she's 10, okay? And so I show a picture of my family to give you guys an idea that this takes all of the people in your direct family, in your direct contact. It takes everyone to do this type of planning for our kids, okay? Wonderful letters behind my name. They're amazing. It means I took some classes to help you guys. Even though I'm a mom, I feel like that is more helping. So, all right. So I love pictures and stories. So there will be a lot of those in this presentation because that helps me take very complicated financial, government benefits, estate planning into what I call CRAN. I want to explain this in English. If I'm not, where are my tired people? Raise your hand. You'll catch me. Yeah, there we go. Yep. So if I'm not explaining it in CRAN, please raise your hand and say, hey, I don't know what that means. I don't know what that acronym is. That doesn't make sense to me. Please stop me. The whole of this planning that we're doing is give our kids an amazing life and keep them benefit eligible if they are in benefits. So I'm talking state waiver systems and SSI. Okay. We cool in that realm relatively? Okay, cool. It takes all of these parts and they're all overlapping for a reason. So let's start over here in the care plan. Care plan is everything outside of financial and legal. Okay, so it's what does your child do every day? What foods, because I know this is food specific, what foods do they eat? If they're tube fed, what kind of nutrition are they getting? Where do you get your supplies? What is their day-to-day like from morning to evening? Okay, and if that's not written down somewhere, I encourage you to do this wonderful exercise where you sit with your spouse. You both write down everything you do for your kiddo from morning to evening, and then you cross compare. Okay, it's the start of a care plan. Okay, you'll find out amazing things like I did. Like I don't know when the bus comes, and I don't know when school ends. But my husband does not know how to get in my chart. And he doesn't know how to find all our doctors, and he doesn't know how to set an appointment. Okay, so then we started documenting that so we both know all the information. Okay, that's the start of a care plan. The other thing you can do with that care plan is start to think of humans that can take over those jobs. This gets you prepped for legal. Okay, I think it takes 4 human beings to replace a caregiver. Who agrees? Yeah, because you're caregivers. So it takes the day-to-day care. It takes a project manager, let's say, of the house. It takes somebody that knows the finances. Somebody should be in also charge of fun. So who's in charge of fun? Where's my dad's? Yeah, thank you. We need you. We love you, okay? Now let's go over to the grow. Indulge is such a hard word for me, but I think indulge as respite. My husband does something amazing for me, which he takes the girls to a hotel on Mother's Day. And I get to stay in my house for 24 glorious hours with no one around. I can sleep, eat what I want, watch garbage TV, whatever it is, okay? So I think rest is an indulgence for caregivers. Personal goals we got to get down, and investing. We got to make sure the money is invested in the way you want it to be. I tell people we're trying to plan for 2 lifetimes, not just 1 lifetime, which is you as the caregiver, but we're planning for a secondary lifetime, which is your child's. Protection, it's a party up here, man. Let's talk about insurance, tax, and legal. Let's go. I am a recovering accountant, so don't hold that against me. So I do tax, I talk tax. Not proud of it, but it's a skill set. Insurances, we always want to make sure those are the correct ones in place. And then, like I said before, give our kids an amazing life, keep them benefit eligible. For that to happen, we need a legal bucket to collect all our assets when we're not around anymore, okay? High-level overview. Like I said, I'm a picture person. I'm gonna introduce you to our timeline. So I like to think of this because a lot of our families think of the age 18 transition as the only transition, because in the eyes of the government, our kids are an adult. So we have to make some decision-making, guardianship, POA, those type of decisions. I would really love you guys to start thinking of them in stages, so we're not thinking of this giant transition that is scary and not really, we're gonna procrastinate something that's scary, okay? Who's in stage 1? Who's in birth to 3? Because if you're here, give that lady all the high fives and all the hearts. She is an early diagnosed person. She is here. That is amazing. Good for you. There we go. Stage 1. All the hearts and high fives for her. We all know what stage 1's like. I have a feeling we remember that. So that's why she gets all the hearts and high fives. It's a very hard stage. Pumped you're on the waiver. You got some school ahead of you. So that's going to do an IEP. I love all of the things that are happening back there. Okay, who's in stage 2? I am. Okay, this is a lot of school, all right? We're in IEP land. We're getting ready for the transition. We're talking about if our kids are gonna stay in school till 21. Got a lot of things happening in stage 2, okay? Now, transition at 18, it is a big deal. So like, give our kids an amazing life, keep them benefit eligible. If they have 0 assets in their name by the time they turn 18, we apply for SSI and they are on it, okay? We need to make some legal decisions on guardianship. We'll talk about that a little bit. And then for me, stage 3 is anxious and anxious. I'm anxious about it. I don't know what my daughter's gonna do when she doesn't go to school anymore. I wanna know what's gonna fulfill her life. I don't know if she's gonna work. And if there's an unknown, I feel anxious, okay? Who's my stage 3s? Yes, yes. Let's give them all the hearts and high fives too. That's my anxious stage, so I know you guys are doing hard work. This is a huge stage for our planning because it goes from the child's 18 to your retirement. Okay, so what we're trying to figure out is, what do our kids cost in hard dollars? How are we going to fund that through our working years, fund that in retirement years, and when we're not around? Because big secret, stage 4 is a real stage that we don't talk about at all, and that's when we're not around, okay? I am not, I told a woman on the plane today, I'm not nice, but I am a kind person, and I think kindness is bringing you as much information as possible, and I'm not going to not talk about the hard stuff. Is that fair? Okay. Who's in stage 4? Nobody's retired yet. We'll get there. Okay. I always bring an example. Okay, so I said I talk in pictures and examples. This is Sam and his parents, George and Jonna. So Sam's 11. He has a rare disease. What? It's a coincidence. His byproducts are seizures. He has a developmental delay. I think he just got a diagnosis of autism. This is a real family, obviously not their picture, but this is a real client of ours. And so I always want to bring this realness to you guys. George works, travels all the time. Jonna stays at home, unpaid caregiver. Hardest job in the world, okay? So I'm going to refer to this family throughout this whole presentation. We good so far? Okay, not asleep yet. My people that are tired are not asleep yet. Am I in your way? You're okay? All right, so we're gonna do it in the same sections that I showed you in that first slide. So care, access to funding, and the financial plan. Okay? So what I told you guys to do, that exercise, daily supports for the person with a disability, including medical. Who provides these supports? How would someone else step in? That's that exercise that I'm trying to get you guys to do, to write down everything you do, because we don't actually know until we write it down and make it real. It also is really good for each other to know. And then for us, that gets us started with what's the cost. It's not the hard costs, I think, that are the hard to calculate. It's the unpaid labor. So what activities are you doing that is outside the realm of being a parent? Okay, let's separate parent and caregiver a little bit if we can. So caregiver duties are different than parent duties. Government benefits. Who's familiar with state and government benefits? If you're gonna be, okay, cool. Okay, so we have federal benefits, which is SSI, okay? And if you're not at the poverty level, you will not be eligible till your child is 18, okay? So that whole idea, give them an amazing life, keep them benefit eligible. They have 0 assets at 18, automatically eligible, okay? Now the state waiver system is per state. And I get asked all this time, like, do you know my state? I might not know it today, but if you're on board, our job is to learn it, okay? I'm from Washington State. My partners are from Virginia. We are moving towards the middle, let's say, and learning all the benefits of each state. So your state will have a waiver system to get on Medicaid, access caregiver hours, access respite hours, access things that you're gonna need to help the whole situation. The word waiver means they're waiving your income because your child needs the help, okay? So the financial plan. We start with the care to figure out the lifetime cost of care. So we will find a hard number from this day to when they pass. We are planning for those 2 generations. There's always tax. Okay, there's tax implications all over the place. And we want to be as tax efficient as possible for your child. That might mean we're asking you guys to take some burden on tax if that comes up, okay? And then the tools we have available. So we're going to talk about ABLE accounts. I get asked that a lot, ABLEs and special needs trust. So give our kids an amazing life, keep them benefit eligible. 2 places we can put money where those government benefits don't care is an ABLE account and a special needs trust. The things I like to talk about too is employee benefits. So if you're employed and your whole family's on your health insurance, or there's other benefits that your child is going to receive while you're in your working years, we really have to make sure those will continue after you retire, right? So health insurance, if your job has some other great benefits that your child is a recipient of, we want to make sure that we don't lose those in retirement, okay? I think we kind of hit this pretty good, but how much does the cost care? How much will I need in retirement to plan for maybe 3 people to live at home? What other goals do we have? So I have another kiddo, that wonderful little carbon copy of my face, Charlie. I want to make sure she has a plan too. So should we college fund? Should we just put money away to help her with her first house? What other planning goals do you have? Because there's not always just one. There's one with our kiddos with rare diseases, but we got to make sure if there's other kiddos to plan for and ourselves, we got to make sure those are covered. What are the gaps? How are we going to cover them? So this is Jonna and George and Sam's actual things that we implemented for them. So this was an adventure for Jonna and George. They procrastinated writing this stuff down. One, because George knew he doesn't participate a lot, and Jonna knew she did a ton. And they were not pumped to try and do this, right? It's not a fun exercise, but they did it. And George had a very big revelation about how much Jonna is actually doing. And at the time when they first engaged, they're like, we need some private help. Like, we're not on the Medicaid waiver yet, but we gotta get some help in the family. So that's what they did. Unpaid support. So they happen to live in a state where if you're a parent caregiver, you can't get paid until your child's over 18. Not uncommon. But some states are very friendly. The one we're in right now is very friendly for waivers. But she was not getting paid right now. His biggest area of difficulties, this is a small list, but it's very texture oriented. So he didn't like washing his hair, clipping nails, multi-step process, not a lot of executive functioning. And so we had to make sure that was represented on his Medicaid waiver application. One of the things I see parents do, and I'm not guilty of it, is when the waiver application comes, we want to make things very optimistic. I'm an optimistic person about my child as well, but you need to be very real with what it takes to take care of your kiddo when we're talking to people about Medicaid waivers, okay? So if one of you, who was the fun? You're the fun. One of you is very fun, that's my husband as well. He can't come to that meeting. You don't get to come because you're the fun, and you will cover in frosting and sprinkles, which I love about you. I am the one that's the realist about what it takes to take care of her, and I will give them the answers. That I will answer those questions with the realism of that, okay? Government benefits, so he did have a disability determination. He was on the wait list for the medical waiver, okay? So there's a lot of wait lists in a lot of states to be on the medical waiver. You've got to apply. Everybody has to apply. I have a feeling, unlike my rare disease, there's always clinical trials, right? There's things coming in, hopefully for your group as well. When that stuff comes through, if you're not on that Medicaid waiver, your primary insurance is not going to know how to do a one-time, quote, cure for our children when rare disease advances happen in the world. And I think you need Medicaid as a backup to help pay for that, just in general. He needed some advocacy, exactly what I explained to you, to be very real with the people about what it takes to take care of them. We actually did help them, and they got on the waiver about 3 months after we had that chit chat. So it kind of improved the whole family outcome after that. The financial plan does give people a cash flow view of how this is all going to play out. Retirement is hard to talk about, I think, for us, because it's not, I'm buying a house in Phoenix, I'm a snowbird, I'm gonna golf. Just looks different, right? So we got to plan for your child. What's the supports? Is your home the home you can live in when you all age, right? Like, we live rurally, we're not on a bus line. We could build another home on our property, but how's Ruth gonna get around, right? And it's things like that that we have to kind of think of as they age in place, from a financial view and from a whole family, how are we going to take care of them view. Sam will be eligible for Medicaid once we got him on that waiver, and Jana will be a paid caregiver when Sam turns 18. So they have 7 more years of unpaid caregiving for Jana until he turns 18, and then she could be a paid parent caregiver. ABLE accounts. Okay, give our kids an amazing life. Keep them benefit eligible. Don't get assets directly in their name. 2 places we can put money: special needs trust and an ABLE. Who's heard of an ABLE? Yes. Okay. So an ABLE at its core, who's heard of a 529? Okay, cool. So a 529, or an ABLE account is a 529A, actually. So it's a chassis of a college fund, something to save for college, but as an A after it. So our kids can use the money for more things than college, okay? These are characteristics of an ABLE. A lot of people really don't love this second one, okay? So let's play a story out. So Sam, let's say he's 25, works at Mod Pizza and gets $2,000 into his household. He also gets Social Security, $3,000 coming into Sam's household every month. How much can we have? 2,000. You get a star. You don't have any prizes. I need some. I'll get some for the next one. $2,000, okay? So Sam's going to pay his parents $500 for a room and board rent, and he still has $500, okay? So he's going to put that excess into an ABLE, and that is allowed, and SSI knows, and the Medicaid system knows. This is all a known thing. It's not sneaky, it's not secret. Now, let's play this out that Sam does that year, month over month, year over year, and he has about $50,000 in his ABLE. And Sam passes away. Can pay for all Sam's personal liabilities and a burial. And then you can, and those are the two things you can pay for it before Medicaid will claw back anything he has used in his lifetime. Okay? So I see an ABLE as a checking. Let's put money in there, save for something, use it. It's also the only first party vehicle. So when I say first party, that's Sam. Say Sam's vehicle, a first party vehicle that we can use to put excess funds when he gets close to that $2,000 limit. So we need it. It's just how we leverage it. Okay. It has some other bells and whistles. I like that it comes with it's a prepaid card. I got to edit that, a prepaid card. So if you do want to give your loved one a little bit of autonomy, it's like a prepaid Visa. Can't get overdraft fees, can't do anything like that. So if you're going to the bowling alley, put $50 on there, go crazy at the bowling alley. My other favorite thing is the qualified disability expenses is like one of the best definitions the government has maybe ever given us. Wellness, betterment, and health of the person. Whew, that's vague. We like that. We like vague, okay? We want it to be that vague because that means something to different people, right? I have a client that loves gaming and is kind of destructive. So he destroyed his TV. We bought him another TV out of his ABLE account, and that is allowed, okay? All right, let's go to protect. How much time? Good, okay. Actually, before I go to protect, any questions? Yeah? We have it, so yeah, we got that coming up. We're in the legal section for sure. Great question. So our question was, do we have an ABLE and a special needs trust? I'll re-ask the question. Sure. Unless it's like really important. Okay, yeah, let's get through. Also, tomorrow I have a session, is Ask Me Anything. So if you want to see me twice, ask me anything tomorrow. Anytime. Anytime. You have to have a diagnosis before 26, but you can open it anytime. Yep. Great question. Okay, so insurance. We're specifically talking about like life insurance and disability insurance. I'm just really making sure if you're the primary caregiver or you're the primary breadwinner, we can replace you somehow, right? And that is usually with insurance. The way we leverage, and I do a lot of term insurance, I do a fair amount of permanent as well. So the way we leverage permanent insurance is if there is a gap that we need to fill to fund your special needs trusts, we do something called survivorship whole life. So if you and your spouse get this type of insurance policy, you both have to pass away for it to benefit anyone. Okay, so it will never benefit either of you in your lifetime. Its sole purpose is to benefit a special needs trust, and a lot of people can use them for estate planning. Some people use them for estate planning as well, for tax purposes. But that is why we would use or suggest permanent insurance for you guys. Tax-wise, so we're at a conference, right? So if you are close to the Schedule A, which is a very large amount to itemize, I know that. You can deduct conferences, tuition. The one that gets people usually over it if you have to remodel to address any accessibility needs. So if you have to make your doorways wider for a wheelchair, if you have to make your shower different to be more accessible, those remodels usually push you over to itemize because those are large remodel projects, okay? Estate tax and IRAs and retirement accounts is really, this is bummer news and I hate to deliver it, but special needs trusts are taxed at a very high rate. I don't make the rules, don't be mad. So what we're trying to do is pass on as many tax-free accounts. So we're talking retirement. If you put pre-tax money in, you're gonna require to take it out later and you're gonna pay tax. So we're really trying to put Roths, life insurance proceeds, a lot of things into special needs trust because the tax has already been paid, okay? It's a little getting into the weeds, but we really have to kind of make sure that anything we put in that special needs trust is going to go for our kids' benefit, and I don't want to pay tax as much as I can, and I don't want to pay extra fees if we don't have to, because that'll kind of spend down that special needs trust quickly. Yeah, whoever, yes. Me and you. Secure Act, so tax law is always changing. Right now we're in a Secure Act 2.0, which I wish they would just end that one. Let's go to 3 or whatever we're gonna do. But we always have to stay real current on tax law because it usually affects legal. On that note, let's go to legal. Okay, so who has wills, power of attorney, medical directives? Awesome. And if you don't, this is not a shame type of scenario. A lot of people put it off. A lot of people put it off. Don't feel bad about it. It's a very hefty lift. You're trying to name backup guardians. You're trying to name backup trustees. You're trying to replace yourself. And I have found with my families, that is why they have procrastinated that. Now, what motivated me is you can exclude humans to not take care of your children. And I have a couple of family members that would want to jump in, but would not be the right people for that. So that motivated me, motivates you, cool. If not, you got to get it done. So wills, POAs, and medical directives. Those are for you, parents and caregivers. Decision-making supports, this is that 18. Okay, so when our kids become 18, what are they in the eyes of everybody else? They're an adults. So depending statewide, you call it guardianship, conservatorship. That is a process of going in front of the court, saying your child is not able to make decisions and you should be appointed to help them, okay? Power of attorney, if they have capacity to sign a doc, gives the right. So they're signing a document that gives you the right to help them, but they are one and the same. I had it for my dad. It's used a lot in elder law as well. So I had power of attorney for my dad to help him make decisions down the line. Some states have adopted supported decision-making. It sounds amazing. I'm super into it. I just want the medical systems to also accept those type of documents. So I don't have an opinion. There's very strong opinions about guardianship in the world. I don't have one. I just want to make sure if you want to be in the room and the medical appointment and they're post-18, you can be. Because if your child is sometimes feeling spicy and the doctor asks, hey, do you want your mom in here? And they're like, no, you don't actually have the right unless you have some documents to say that you do, okay? Special needs trust, okay. Give them an amazing life, keep them benefit eligible, $2,000 limit, ABLE account and special needs trust, okay? So if we're using an ABLE account as a checking, what would a special needs trust be? Saving, look at you, you're still awake, I love it. Savings, okay? And that is where our large, let's say estate assets are gonna go. So IRAs, you can put houses in there, you can put a lot of things in there. And if you're creating, I'm gonna get to your first party, third party question, a third party special needs trust, that means everybody else but your kiddo can put money in there. And you can have a secondary beneficiary. So on the off chance we fund Ruth's special needs trust with all the money in the world and she doesn't use all of it, it will then pass to Charlie, my other daughter, okay? First party, third party, okay? These are two types of special needs trusts. Okay, when I said like an ABLE is a first party, that means your Sam can put money in. Also other parties can, but they view it as a first, so there will be a Medicaid payback vehicle. First party special needs trusts also have that same provision. These are used a lot in this second bullet. So when someone has an accident or a settlement that happens, so a lot of birth injuries have this where they get a settlement from the hospital and the doctor, they get a big chunk of money, you got to set up a first party trust to accept that. Now, our families would prefer a third because that means everyone else but our kiddo. And we're trying to keep assets of their name, so they shouldn't have them in their name anyway. And then everyone else can put into this third, okay? Luxury part, I was talking to my friend about. Grandparents, cool. Have conversations about what their plan is. They have really great intentions, especially if they want to help your child, but they can over-resource very quickly with any kind of assets that they might want to pass, okay? So having a trust created for them is great because they can name out their estate. As long as they don't care if your money's mingled, we're cool. Had several meetings with grandparents just to talk about this because this doesn't make sense to them. And no offense to that generation, but they also don't want to talk about money. They don't want to talk about their estate. They don't want to talk about passing away. So blame it on me. Tell them that you saw this presentation today. I just want to know what your plan is and make sure you don't over-resource my kiddo, okay? All right, this is how it works. So parents need this, trusts and wills in place. This special needs trust needs to be created to get our assets, that's our savings. Decision-making, if we want that. Guardianship, conservatorship, POA. Microboard, I'm going to save because we have a specific slide about that, but it all just wraps around your person, right? Okay, questions at the end. My man back there. Okay. So what we did for the Smith family, Jonna and George were healthy enough to get survivorship. Jonna, at her core, was pretty conservative, and she was worried about them spending a lot of money in retirement. So she just was very set on having a chunk of money that was always going to go to Sam's Special Needs Trust. And so this was a good option for her. That's supposed to say George. George was underinsured for disability. He actually didn't opt in to his work disability insurance. And I was like, hey, George, so if you get hurt, like this is going to really suck for your family because you're not going to have income replacement. So he opted in, and then he actually opted into the larger amount because he is the primary bedrunner and he does travel a lot. And I was like, George, I need you with me. So he did opt into that. So they could deduct medical for the supports they paid out of pocket. So I told you they private paid to get some supports for Jonna, and they could deduct that. And then their beneficiaries were a little outdated. One of the main things that people miss when naming out beneficiaries, so we're talking IRAs, life insurance, 401ks specifically, is you name your spouse, and then who do you name as a secondary? Your kids? Do you name your kids as a secondary? And we name the trust, 2 stars. But when you are signing up for them in that frantic 90-day when you've been working there, a lot of people with their kids, okay? So 2 things require you to write down what you and your spouse do. Check your beneficiaries on all your vehicles and make sure the kids aren't directly on there, okay? Legal, I was pumped how many people raised their hand that had their legal done. I'm not pretending that about 70% of people that come to us don't have it done yet. And I do think it's just a mental, it's hard. It's hard to replace yourself. And their lawyers are going to ask you questions about who's your backup guardian, who's your backup trustee, who's going to take your spot. And those are hard things to come to grips with, I think, as a caregiver. So we want to get you as ready for that meeting as possible. They created a microboard. Like I said, we have a slide about that to talk about that. And I'm not out of time, so that's great. So let's do that now. So microboards. This is a fairly new type of support that's kind of coming out in the country right now. It is a legal registered entity. So think of it as a non-for-profit or an LLC or however your state's going to handle this kind of being legally registered. It cannot make decisions for your person. It's not a guardian. It cannot make distributions out of your trust. It's not a trustee. It is a group of people that are really going to care about your child and that can have an agenda, have an annual meeting, look at their care plan and make sure everything's going on. It is a real, I think, great tool for continuation for a lot of us that are like, I don't have family close. I don't know who's going to take over behind me. And it usually always just starts with the 2 parents on the microboard, and then you start recruiting people. We have a great client is he in Maryland? I think he's in Maryland. And he, on his microboard, has his PTOT speech person, known him for 30 years, maybe, and her job is fun. Like that's her job on the microboard, to make sure he is having fun that year, whether that means trips to Disneyland or whatever things that he loves the most. And you kind of think of this as working as a entity past you. So yeah, you want to set it up, you want to recruit people, you want to coach them on how it works, but you also want to think of like, oh, cool, what do we want for the future after I'm not around, because this microboard's going to live on and on and on. All right, grow. We're going to invest, do some personal growth, indulge. So the managing of the money becomes pretty critical due to we want to, at least the families I've found, we are trying to preserve and live an amazing life. And I don't want people to live on rice and beans. I don't want you to have an amazing life. But there is a lingering bucket that we want to live for our kids. And so people are either on one side or the other. They're spending a bunch because they just like, I want to get the best out of this time. Or they're saving every penny. And I want to be somewhere in the middle. I don't want you to eat beans and rice and not love your life, but we can't spend it all. Okay, so we got to be somewhere in that middle ground. Okay. We use a dividend strategy, especially in retirement, due to we can try and do that, preserve as much principal as possible while living on income and dividends. So like I said, with indulge, we do really ask, how are you doing? If we don't care for ourselves, how are we going to care for another human being longer? I'm guilty of it. I went and did an awful dental surgery on one of my birthdays, and I was like, oh, this is self-care. This is self-care, right? So we got to take care of ourselves. Put your life mask on. I'm going to make you do that in some of this planning because we don't. We pour everything into our kids. Rest is one of them. I know that a rested brain can be a forward-thinking brain. And so I know that with this planning, I'm giving a lot of information and I'm going to ask you to do things. But the end goal would be that we're not thinking about this all the time. Let's close one of those tabs that's spinning because we all have a bunch. I try not to let the shame and guilt come in. So the first thing people say to me when we meet, I should have done this years ago. It's a should list. That's a shame list. Let's not put that on ourselves. You're here today to learn about this. That's the first awesome step. So please don't feel shame or guilt. And then personally, how are we growing? So I required myself to take 30 minutes for myself every day in Q3. Yep. And I had to actually check it off. I had to write down what it was, because some of that stuff doesn't count. Going and getting my daughter's prescription is not something for me, it's something for her. Okay, so I'm really into actually doing some things that take care of you as the caregiver, because we need to be around a long time to be around for our kids, okay? Dividend investing, this is not my wonderful area. This is my partner, Kristen, loves investing. So I'm like, oh, okay. So the whole idea is we're trying to preserve dividends and live off that if possible. Now we will take some distributions if needed, but if we can preserve as much principal with having access to it in case we need it, that's the goal. Okay. So for the Smith family, I already mentioned Jonna was very conservative. She wanted to put all of their money into that focus because she was very conservative. She does not like the ups and downs of the market, and it fit her specific investment profile. And to be really honest, Jonna was the one that was looking at everything. Jonna was the finance, the caregiver. She had all the stuff. Jonna returned to her hobby of gardening. So she actually recruited some friends, which I think this is always good to keep us accountable when we're trying to do anything about ourselves. She recruited friends to come over every Wednesday and help her with her garden. So even on days when she was like, God, I don't want to garden, they were there. They were showing up. They were helping her. So if you need an accountability partner for some self-care, I really highly recommend. I walk in our lovely town of Spokane every day, and I have an accountability partner that goes with me about twice a week in those, because I don't want to do it every day, but I do need it to keep myself together. George attended a dad's group. Is there a dad's group for this rare disease? Yeah? Yeah, you did. Fun. I like this guy. I think dad groups are really important. They're not a lot of them, and I think you guys need a lot of support. So George found one, and he actually saw a lot of what Jonna was doing through other dads that were the primary caregiver. So it really brought perspective for him. And he had a community that he didn't have before. And then Sam, actually with the new caregiver, so they got on the Medicaid waiver, they're gonna get an outside caregiver to come help Jonna. He was actually excited. This caregiver loved Legos, which feel like a requirement for Sam. But I think how do I say this? We really want to know that we are doing the best job for our kids, but sometimes a third party can make all the difference. And I know food is a big thing, but I had a client who had a 19-year-old and ate PB&J and mac and cheese, I think only. And she's like, I gotta get this kid to eat something else. I just really do. And I go, maybe it's not you. Like maybe let's bring in and like go to food therapy or bring a third party or get one of those boxes where we make food together or whatever delivered to your house. And she did get somebody to bring in. Was completely different. Why? Because their kids, even when they're 19, they might be delayed. They don't want to hear that from their parents. Our parents are going to go through our kids are going to go through a rebellious stage, right? So all those kids that are in stage 3, they're like, yeah, I see that. But it's going to be delayed. So they might be 26 when they're like, I don't want to listen to what you're telling me to do. That's when maybe we get some third parties in there to teach some things, okay? And then for indulgence, they planned a family vacation. So they hadn't been on vacation since Sam was born, okay? So we pushed to try and get them to a vacation to see how that would go. Now you have all traveled here with your children, so we all know what that's like. You're staying in a hotel, you don't have control over the environment, the sounds, any of that stuff, which is a challenge. But I'm glad they did it because they realized, okay, we don't want to do that, but we do want to have a place closer to Jonna's family with all our stuff. And all of Sam's needs can be met there, and all we got to do is hop on a plane. And once we get there, we can all, okay, and control our environment and make sure everything's okay. So they realized it was a condo that they finally purchased, and they go there 2 or 3 times a year, and then they rented out VBRO the rest of the time. Okay. This is us. All right, we did it. This is us. You know me, so I started at a giant insurance company, and it was always a financial planner. My 2 partners are in Virginia. We cover all time zones, all states, and Kristen actually was on the she was on the trading floor, so she loves investments. And then Dr. Kathy Matthews actually has a doctorate in behavior, so she does care plans, Medicaid, SSI, all of that stuff that's outside. So even that Venn diagram you saw in the first, it kind of covers all of our areas. So together, we make one amazing planner. We are also all obviously women, but we're also moms of kids that have some form of disability. So that's really important to us. Process, not unlike anybody else. And then let's go. That QR code is dangerous. It goes right to my calendar. So if you're like, I want to meet with you, that's how you get it. It's also on this slide. Oh, yeah. And we made it to the questions. So if you do that QR code, you can get to my calendar specifically. I do all the first and second meetings. And we have 6 wonderful minutes for questions.